Now, we have other questions that people have sent in to us
not related to the message.
Not related to the message on the forum online. And this first one, whoever wrote this, I just want to applaud you. This is a great, great question. Very good. Very good question.
Applaud you.
And the reason I say that is because if you remember, it was like last week or maybe 2 weeks ago on the podcast, we were talking about whenever you read something in the scriptures and it makes you go, now that doesn't sound like Jesus. And then your first reaction shouldn't be, well, then it must be true and Jesus was wrong, or Jesus, didn't mean that. It should make you then reevaluate what you're seeing or hearing and go, maybe there's something I don't understand. That's what this person is doing in this question. So here's the question. They say in Mark chapter 7, verse 27, they say, it's bothersome to me that Jesus refers to Gentiles as being like dogs. Surely I am misunderstanding. Can you help me understand it? And again, you're right. Maybe you are misunderstanding something when Jesus calls somebody a dog. Let me read the passage so that we get the full context so you'll see what's going on. It says, this is Mark chapter 7, verse 24. Then Jesus left Galilee and went north to the region of Tyre. He didn't want anyone to know which house he was staying in, but he couldn't keep it a secret. Right away, a woman who had heard about him came and fell at his feet. Her little girl was possessed by an evil spirit, and she begged him to cast out the demon from her daughter. Since she was a Gentile born in Syria and Phoenicia, Jesus told her, now that's important, since she was a Gentile born in Syria and Phoenicia, Jesus told her, first I should feed the children, my own family, the Jews. It isn't right to take food from the children and throw it to the dogs. She replied, that's true, Lord, but even the dogs under the table are allowed to eat the scraps from the children's plates. Good answer, Jesus said. Now go home, for the demon has left your daughter. And when she arrived home, she found her little girl lying quietly in bed. The demon was gone. All right. What you have to understand about this exchange that Jesus has with this lady is it's one of those things that it's often lost in translation, to be quite honest, cultural translation. In the first century, especially among Jewish people, but in that culture, there was a lot of word sparring and back and forth. In fact, many times you'll see that rabbis, when they speak to one another, they'll answer one another in questions because what they're doing is almost like it's almost like a playing with words back and forth to see, I'm going to give you a clever answer, see if you can come back with another clever answer. And then there'll be things that you'll say that try to elicit an answer towards somebody else. And it's not necessarily joking or making fun of them, but it's almost a playful kind of back and forth exchange.
Yeah, it was their way of teaching a little bit. They had a little bit of teaching that was going on in that.
And it causes the hearer to think and to come back with an answer. So what Jesus was doing was he was trying to elicit a response out of this woman, and he was referring to the Gentiles as being like dogs eating scraps from the table. And then she comes up with it's like he says, come back at me. I don't want you to give up. I want you to keep coming. It's kind of that.
He's trying to gauge her faith, I've always thought.
Engage her faith and see if she's really invested here or if she's just going to walk away. It was certainly not intended to call her a name. It was not intended to make any statement about her as a person. It was to elicit a response. Yeah. And so it was, again, so when you see that and say, Jesus must not have called somebody a dog. You're right, he wasn't. He was...
Well, and so much of it, I think, has to do, so I think when you read something that doesn't sound like Jesus, there are two things. You may have not understood what Jesus was saying, but you may also have an understanding of Jesus that is not complete enough in that I find so many people who their view of Jesus is really syrupy, and I don't... Sweet is just the way, and I don't even mean kind. It's just, I'm always polite. I don't engage like other people engage. But you can't read Jesus with his disciples and not see occasionally he's like, oh my goodness, you guys are just stupid. You know, my favorite one is where he's talking to them and they've just got done with the encounter with the, he's fed the 5,000, then they've had an encounter with the Pharisees, and he says to the guys as he's getting in the boat, be beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. And they start saying among themselves, not thinking he reads our hearts, going, he's mad because we didn't bring any of the bread. And he goes, it's not about the bread.
Yeah.
It is not, I'm not talking about you about bread.
Or where he has a different encounter with the Pharisees, and he's pretty critical of them. And then the disciples pull him aside and goes, you know, they're very offended by this. And he's kind of like, yes,
that
they
was my
should
point.
be. If they understood
I
what
was
I said.
trying.
Yeah.
I hope they were.
Well,
and so I think that's what's going on here is there may be a view of Jesus that says Jesus doesn't engage with people on a level that, you know, dogs is the way. So Jewish people, normal Jewish people did call Gentiles dogs.
Well, yes.
That is a normal thing that she would be used to hearing from a rabbi that she stopped. Oh my goodness, that's, and he wants to see, is she going to take this as it is, or has she heard, I believe, this is a different guy. This is a different guy.
And he had been going around saying this message is for the entire
All
world.
nations.
And so he says to her, hey, look, I'm only supposed to deal with the Israelites. I can't give it to you. He wants her to come.
Yes.
You said, I believe what you said. And then, and again, go to what he says afterwards. He says, good answer. That's the first thing he says to her. He applauds
he's
her
saying,
for
you
her
got it
faith.
right.
You did exactly what I wanted you to do, and you proved to me that you believe this.
And I'm not confident it's this passage, but I think right after that, the disciples are shocked, one, that he has much to do with her. You know, that they're a little taken back by, is that the same one?
Right after that's the deaf man, so I was going to see if they have that exchange later on. But.
And then there's an exchange he has with a Roman centurion.
Yes.
The people that Jesus commends highest for faith, this woman gets a real high commendation.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's a Roman centurion
said,
who
"I've never
all
seen anything."
Jews, including, I mean, he has a zealot in his 12. Zealots are supposed to kill Roman centurions. That's their job. And he says, there isn't faith in all of Israel like that guy.
I know.
Yeah.
He's the best faith in all of Israel. I should have chosen him.
That's a good tee up for Sunday's message. That's really where we're getting to in the next part of this story, is that Jesus is breaking down this religious view, because I think it's hard for us to see in our time, but religion for them, especially for the Jews, was also so racial for them. It was a national identity, so it would be like their American identity, but it was also their racial identity. And so whenever they interacted, they did often refer to the Gentiles as dogs. And the one we're going to be looking at Sunday is he's with a Samaritan woman. They frequently referred to the Samaritans as dogs, and even worse. And Jesus, and I believe in this, is doing what you're saying. If he's saying, hey, I know what religion right now tells you, what your box tells you and what their box tells you. I'm not about this, but he's wanting her to take a step towards him and say, do you have enough faith to believe this about me, that what I'm saying
I
is
think
true?
he gets the biggest grin on his face
Oh,
when she
absolutely.
says, even the scraps, and I think he goes, great answer.
Yeah.
What a great answer.
Yeah. And then, of course, he heals her daughter. So,
Yeah.
I mean, again,
Yes.
look at all the context. Why would he say that if he meant what you thought he meant and not do all
But like
of
you
what
said,
he did?
this is
So-
a great question.
Well,
this
it is
a great
This is
question.
one of those things that often gets kind of thrown at specifically the Bible and also just Christianity as it's a racial thing, and this is racist because even Jesus called someone of another race a dog, which we're saying
Again.
that's not even
close.
not what he did.
Well, and you guys, it really is a part of our culture, too. In our culture, we are so hypersensitive to names and anything that we are a little critical of each other. But even not that long ago when I was growing up, there were nicknames we gave to people and really liked the person, and they're offensive.
Yeah, they're mean.
I mean, I had a short little friend. We called him Stumpy forever. I mean, forever. He's just a little bitty fella. He was one of my best friends, but he was we called him Stumpy. I've had one nickname in my life that my grandpa gave me. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I don't like it. But
I know what it is. I'm not telling you.
he gave it to me forever. And it's the only nickname I've ever had, but it was not endearing.
No.
So
Okay.
there you go.
Awesome. But yes, thanks for that question.
That was a great
It was
question.
great.